Good morning, everyone. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see you all here today. No, I'm not going to say anything, but
You just did.
when you said it, when I look out into the audience and, it gives me some kind of feeling about how meetings will go. All right, we have Connie on the agenda.
We can remove item 10, budget amendments. Please.
Your wishes? That's to you.
I'll move the amended agenda. Support.
Moved by DeRosa, supported by Augustine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. In front of you, you have a couple of sets of minutes. You have two sets of minutes from our closed session last month, as well as the minutes that were open.
Support.
Rogers and Pearl Wright. Questions or comments? All in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. This is your first opportunity for some limited public comment. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Oh, hold on. I'll say it again. This is your first opportunity for limited public comment. If you should have a comment, this is your time. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Okay. 'Tis the audit season. Our auditors have been here, they've done their work, and it's the time that we review and get their reviews. As it turns out, the audit, we just got our results, our preliminary results, and Connie will discuss them. They're not in fully enough where we're going to send it to the full board on next Wednesday. Usually if we had the finalized report, we would okay it and we send it to the full board. But just timing is timing, so we're going to end up probably going to the full board with this on a month from Wednesday. But in the meantime, since we do have information, I would like Connie and Melissa to talk about the results of the audit. Connie?
So we'll start with the resolution that's in the packet. This isn't required. We could have done it in April, but this is the resolution to accept the audit. So it's written as preliminary draft, and then they will be sent to the state and federal government this month as required by law. So again, the resolution is not required in terms of timing, but all you're doing is accepting it. You can't change the results of the audit or ask for anything different. So that is the resolution. We will now go through the,
Why are we doing it? Why don't we just wait till April? If you're telling us we'll get the final document and we're gonna send this on to the full board in April, why don't we just do the resolution accepting the audit in April? What's the purpose of doing it now?
it's the same difference. It doesn't. This is the way we've done it in the past if the auditors haven't been present.
Well, I don't remember that we've ever accepted a draft.
Yeah, we have. This was
Last year, I think we had,
copied. Yeah, we did.
which, quite frankly, was going to be my question before you moved on here. I mean, is this, I know last year there were all these reasons why it took so long, why we didn't get it done. There were other agencies that didn't cooperate. And as we all know, we were all very excited when Raymond sent us an extra bill for all the extra money that we had to pay. And so here we are again, and the firm that we've engaged and hired has not completed the audit on time for us to so who's whose responsibility is this? I guess that's my question. Is it other agencies? Is it us? Because I know there's been some back and forth on some things. Was it that, or is it just the auditors are just not able to do their job on time?
So first, this is the last year of using these auditors, and we'll be going.
Oh, I know that.
Well, no, our contract's up, 3-year contract's up. Secondly, the issue that was explained to us was related to the county, and it was related to the new GASB requirements. So we were required to report what's called SABITAs, which is software. Okay, so we have several contracts. We went through utilizing the company debt books, and based on debt books and the incorporation of the leases and the SPIDAs, it took longer for them to evaluate, and that's the reason they gave for not being prepared to come present. So we didn't anticipate the preliminary audit results to get to us this week. We anticipated it to come next week. But since they're here this week, I felt it was necessary to provide at least a short explanation of 2 of the findings that were in the audit, and then give you what the results were as far as general fund balance, that fund balance that we'll have. So that's why we were doing it this month. Again, if you want to do the resolution in April, that's fine. You're still accepting the same document, because the simple changes would be, within the document would be wording. It's not going to be the actual financial piece of it.
Well, and I appreciate staff. Obviously, we've got results. I think we should be talking about them. I just am quite frustrated. I also recall this, we talked about this GASB situation last year that was going to be upcoming, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it the auditors that recommended that we purchase the software that we purchased? Hey, I'm sorry, but I just, this is,
Commissioner Augustine, I'm 100% right there with you. But we're at the point we are, so going over it multiple times isn't going to change anything. We just need to contract with another firm, which we will be doing. We'll go out for bid,
yeah.
so.
Well, I don't have any objection to talking about the findings this month. That's not what I'm talking about. This says draft. Well, that suggests that there's a final version that comes. You say nothing will change. Well, I don't know. In that case, it's not a draft. It's the final version. And it just seems to me, and maybe we did it last year and I don't remember, but if there's no pressing need, like the federal government has to have a resolution from us by March 31st or something like that, I don't see any reason why we can't just talk about what the findings are. There's no reason not to at this point.
Okay, then we can just remove the resolution.
Yeah, and then
Buddy
when we
could
get
do that from the board agenda.
when we get a final document, we'll accept it. Until then, I don't know what I don't know what they're going to change. A draft suggests to me that there are potential changes coming.
Okay.
Well, to do this properly, it's on our agenda.
Well, I would simply move that we table the resolution in regards to accepting the audit.
Moved by Brailer, supported by DeRosa.
Okay, that's not what I was going to say.
You were doing this.
Yeah, I was agreeing with Joe on that. but-
And we'll move it until, we'll table this resolution until next month.
Now I got a question.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well,
Connie, how do we know?
What, we got to vote first.
Oh, sorry. I
If-
thought it was in discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
We're just voting on the table. The rest of it's in discussion. Go.
Okay.
Commissioner DeRosa.
Considering Commissioner Augustine's statement, how do we know that this firm will not give us an additional bill yet again this cycle?
No, we're done with our payments, so that's final.
Okay, I'll take
I
your
can
word for it.
address
Thank you.
that, Commissioner DeRosa. So the auditors have actually been very diligent this year about change orders and additional expenses. So they've been providing documents as they go, saying this is cost additional monies. So they have actually been very diligent about that.
Thank you.
So last year was the one that, they sort of snuck it to us. And this year, because of our kicking, moaning, crying, and complaining,
Our persistence.
Okay.
Standing on,
Okay.
All right, so for the first thing I'd like to point out is the ending fund balance for the general fund is 6.7 million. So you'll see that on page 6 of your packet, and it's highlighted. The actual total fund balance is to what they consider to be our general fund on the basis of the fact that we set aside money to go into such as the computer fund or the public improvement fund. Those are listed in the assigned column, or row, which is 1.9 million. So you've moved that money into those funds. You could pull it back, but you've already assigned it to projects for now and for future. So we consider the 6.7 to be what you have in fund balance to spend.
Is that the number that's always appeared on our budget forms?
Correct.
Because that's correct. I never remember seeing an assigned number on that, on our forms. I always knew it was there because
Yes.
assigned could also indicate, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the difference in the estimated use of fund balance and what we ended in fund balance, we came ahead by $910,000. That would be the reduction in the expenses due to positions that were not filled, and then revenue that had come in under what was projected. And we will give that full analysis next month, the breakdown of exactly where we fell. So that first page 6 is just showing you the breakdown of those. The second page shows you the revenues and expenditures and where we fell in relationship there. So you can see revenues over and under expenditures were actually 1.7 million, not including what we consider as transfers in and transfers out. And those are listed as 1.2 million. A change in fund balance was 466. And that's again where we left off with the ending fund balance. Did I miss anything on that, Melissa? Okay. Yes.
But again, we're using, or we increased the fund balance because we had open positions. But a couple months ago, we talked about having to fill some of the positions early for training and things like that. So what we looked at, if we look back, will not be the same as looking forward. Do you understand? Because we're going to have to fill some of those.
So we'll be filling positions as we move along. The primary place would be, the hope would be public safety. So based on the fact that we settled the settled the contract early. The portion that you're talking about for additional training would be in the youth facility.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
of,
and
because
we will-
want to be up.
so when we get to the child care fund, Melissa will go through that as to what the ending fund balance was there, how much we have that we're projecting for this year, and the fact that we would be able to pull that money back potentially into the general fund.
Okay, thanks for your explanation.
Okay, so now I'm going to move on to what occurred in the audit as far as what they consider findings. So Melissa's going to go over the finding we'll call number 1, and then I will review the second finding.
So the first finding was related to material audit weakness. So they said that there was a material audit adjustment after the auditors started. Basically, it's journal entries that were done after we sent them the information. There was approximately 20-some journals. Many of them are expected. However, some of them were considered material by the auditors. So they impacted cash, general fund monies. Trying to go through, sorry. They impacted our OPEB. However, it was it was,
The OPEB, so within the finding, when we wrote our response, you will see that we are saying we recognize and agree with the recommendations the auditor gave. The procedures have been revised here. Additional procedures need to be developed, and those are in relationship to determining the responsibilities, and Ben Dawson talked about this last month as the need for accountants within Drain and the Treasurer's Office. So there was an delineation of responsibilities going from the Drain Commissioner's Office to the Treasurer's Office as to financials related to both special assessments and the regular drain accounting. It's been handled by the Treasurer's Office. Some of it should be handled through the Drain Office. The other issue is the reporting and journal entries that are done from the Treasurer's Office that should be done by the Treasurer's Office, but as we found in the past, were done through my office, through the former controller administrator, which, because that individual was a CPA, they were doing that work unknown in some cases to current administration and staff. The treasurer and I have had discussions at length regarding this. He's aware of all of the journals that were done. Drain Commissioner is as well. We're working on procedures. We're going to evaluate the workflow within the Controller's Office, as well as discuss the workflow in Drain and the Treasurer's Office. So does that better explain it? Melissa's saying thank you.
I want to add that there was no financial malfeasance whatsoever.
No.
It was journal entries that were put in late, or they were put in late, basically.
well, there was also one journal entry that the auditors requested us to do that was different, handling things different than we have ever done. So it was in regards to our American Rescue Plan Act funds. They had requested that we receive the revenue in the general fund where the expenses were, historically we have recorded those within the American Rescue Act plan funds.
Right, we had a different bucket fund that we always recorded it in, and the auditor said, no, that's got to be recorded over here.
Correct.
I mean, it's accounting.
It's the joy of ARPA, or not.
So your response is in the yellow.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so on to the next
Commissioner
one.
Augustine.
Oh, sorry.
I may. So, and I understand, we've talked about this, I understand there's no financial issues other than just accounting here. But what concerns me is this is a repeat finding, so this is year 2. And I think that this board probably should have a little bit more, I guess maybe do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that staff, and this is not, there was a big transition from one staff to the other, there was a lot going on, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but we as a board have a responsibility to correct this error. This is a repeat finding, which means it happened last year and it happened again. So I think we need to do something, we need to at least request that staff provide us with, you talked about the workflows, the responses, so in the audit, there is a response, there is a discussion of what happened, but it's very general, it's less detailed, and I know we've had conversations with staff about what specifically was the issue, and I just want to make sure this doesn't happen again. This is literally our job to do this, and so I would just ask that staff bring us back next month their more detailed plan of how you either, changes that you've put into place or that you plan to put into place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And I understand the complications because you're not just talking about the county side of it, you're talking about the drain office, the treasurer's office as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I respect that. And if it's one of those things that we're going to have to work on and make some changes as we move along here this year, that's fine. But at least bring us something to let us know that this is in progress. Do you guys agree with me that that's something that we should be doing?
I agree.
Okay.
I think Melissa will give us that, and I know that behind the scenes, we have been talking about how some of the ways to fix this, and a lot of it has to do with personnel. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the drain office has our largest money source and a lot of transactions, and it's not in their wheelhouse to do some of that accounting. You know, we have engineers and people that are dealing with people, and we have all these projects, and, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts over there, and honestly, we're weak in some of the accountant parts of that office.
Yeah.
And in the past, pieces were picked up by the controller's office, and we need to evaluate how we've handled some of these financial issues within these separate offices. And that's what we are doing, and we're discussing that in depth.
Well-
So what we will provide next month will be, we can give you an analysis of the changes we could make today without evaluating the actual workflow, which is what I want to do. And we'll have to look at that over the course of the next few months, because that's a more detailed analysis going forward. So we would
I think that's
continue.
completely fair and fine, and I suspect, as Blake just mentioned, that a lot of this does have to do with the fact that the controller's office has been understaffed ever since I've been here. And so, you know, I understand that that's a big part of it, but it's just making sure that we have a plan. I guess I would request too, Mr. Chair, if we could just have this a running agenda item that we talk about for the next, at least until we feel like it's resolved and we're in good shape. Because again, you never want to see a repeat finding on an audit, and we certainly don't want to see it again next year, so.
Okay? I would agree with that. Melissa, would you put that into your regular presentation?
Thank you.
Okay. Oh.
Just so I understand. The problem was late journal entries.
Correct.
So they were late journal entries because, yeah, it sounds to me like we have two different problems here, but, so the late journal entries were in the drain office?
Some
Treasurer's
entries.
office? Where were these late journal entries?
So the one journal entry was in the recording of the ARPA funds, which we talked about. That was the largest one. The first one was related to the OPEB, and that is looking at the account that is in our MERS trust and balancing that account to the general ledger.
Okay.
So the individual doing that had the beginning balance incorrect, and they were processing, again, I can't change it now. They were processing the journals with that beginning balance and not reviewing the balance at the end of each journal to ensure that it balanced to what was shown in the MERS trust account.
Well, that's not a late entry, that's,
It's a late entry because it was found after the auditors were on site. So they consider that a late entry, that we were correcting
well, that's semantics. I mean, I guess we can spend all the time we want on semantics. All right, so we had a problem where we started with the wrong balance and we never corrected it. And somebody caught it at some point and
Correct.
said, instead of $5,250, you should have started out with $5,150, or whatever it may have been.
a lot more than that, but yes.
I understand. All right, so, well, I guess I'm somewhat confused. I don't know that that has anything to do with the drain office. So,
Well, one of the entries that occurred that they did not know related back to 2015. So that was, yes, that was where actually Melissa had caught the entry. Melissa had caught it. Heidi in my office, our accountant, had gone through and done an analysis. We turned that over to the treasurer, and that was a transfer between what's considered the construction drain fund and the debt drain fund. So in that respect, that's what I'm referring to when I say the drain office. And you would see that too at the very bottom entry where it indicates regular drain fund. That was related to an accounts payable entry that was not caught, again, by staff.
2015?
That was not, that was this last fiscal year, 22, 23.
I thought you said it was something from 2000.
There were two factors. They did not give us a finding on the first one, so.
Well, I mean, Like I said, it sounded to me like we were talking about two different problems, and I'm not sure that we
There
still aren't.
are a few.
There's difference between, being late in putting things in the ledger, and maybe it sits on the corner of somebody's desk and it doesn't get put in a proper time. And then this other thing about the previous controller doing stuff behind everybody's back.
Not behind everyone's back. It was doing work that was, I guess, their wheelhouse. So instead of passing that to staff, they were doing the work and assisting the treasurer's office, whereas it should have been trained in the treasurer's office, and that's related to taxes. So,
As I said, that sounds like two different problems.
oh, that, yes, which is why we'll make changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of the discussion we had in the prior month, just about the idea of having accounting bases in the treasurer's office and in the drain office, and then kind of staffing discussions we've had at ours. We're not prepared to present anything on that today, but that was kind of what was the,
I understand.
Yeah.
It goes to what Blake was talking about earlier, is that I understand that the expertise in the drain office right now, they don't have somebody that is an accountant, and they handle a lot of money. So if you tell me that the ledgers are not being kept in an appropriate manner or over an appropriate time, then clearly that's a personnel issue to me. They need help there in terms of handling all the money. That's why I'm trying to, when I say, so there's a fix there.
yeah.
And we shouldn't have this problem going forward in the future. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I mean, all right, so we got one out of or maybe two findings out of the drain office. We got findings someplace else that, at least in that respect, personnel in the drain office isn't going to do a thing for it. So it's just.
Right, yeah, it's a nexus between just better defining duties and responsibilities between treasurer's office, drain office, and controller's office, because all three have a nexus of connection, and that's what we're going to be working on in future months, is what that looks like.
Well, if everybody knew that the prior controller was doing some of this stuff on a regular basis, then we shouldn't have run into this problem, because when he left, I would have thought that the people in whose departments he was assisting would have gone, oops, that's something I need to do. Evidently, they didn't, which is another problem in and of itself. Because you tell me that everybody knew he was doing it, well, then,
So no.
No, that's
I will
not.
say, if you're talking about the treasurer's office, the treasurer did not know. Staff within the treasurer's office did. The treasurer and I, again, have had at-length discussions related to who's doing what transaction and how it's reconciled. So that's bottom line there.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe, the reason that I asked for this is exactly what you were talking about, Joe. I mean, yeah, the finding is that we had to make adjustments after the year end. Well, that's really the effect of a problem. I mean, it says it's the cause, but in reality, those adjustments were made after the fact because they were missed, because we didn't have the right workflows in place, because there's always a lot of coordination specifically between the treasurer's office, the controller's office, and the drain office, and that's not unique to us. It's every county deals with these types of situations, trying to figure out whose duties end and start and stop where. And I think that's, again, why my suggestion was, I appreciate the audit response, but in reality, what we need to know is the more detailed stuff that we've already kind of started talking about, but a plan in writing. And so that's the reason I requested it, because, again, the problem is not, in my mind, is not that the adjustments were made after the fact. The problem was that they were missed early
Correct.
on. And that has to do with workflows and process. So that's why we're here, and that's what we need to talk about.
And I appreciate that, and we'll do that, and that's how we'll handle this. And honestly, we've been calling out the treasurers and the drain, but as we know, every department in the county, they don't have as many financial entries as those two, obviously, but each of them have touches on financial entries. And you can go to emergency services or the sheriff's department or wherever. It happens everywhere. And so this could easily have happened through one of another departments, one of our granting groups, at the courts or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of moving parts when it comes to the finances, and they all end up, the nexus is right here in this office. And so,
Well, I agree, but there are nuances with the treasurer's office and the drain office. They have their own statutory and constitutional authorities and duties, and there's always, I mean, all you have to do is pick up the newspaper and you'll find a county somewhere where a treasurer is suing a county board and vice versa because they can't agree on who does what. So that's why, again, this is important to set the stage going forward so that we have smooth workflows between these three different, almost separate entities, really, based on our statutes and constitution.
yes, Jeannie?
I agree with Joe because that's what I was hearing. I'm not the best person in accounting. I do good human services. But that's what I was hearing. While we are in the process of doing our budget, in your workflow plans that you're looking at, to make sure if we really do need another person in there, you know what I mean, with an actual new person to take over this chunk of it, so that this person, like Heidi, can do this chunk of it, you know, on her grants and things. We put that in the budget plan, because that's the way it is, you know, if it takes out something else, well, you're looking at how to operate in the future, and I don't see it getting any better with all the drain projects that we're gonna have to be, facing here in the next 5 years, I'm guessing. So, I'm just saying, if you gotta hire a half a
Okay.
one.
Connie, what was the second finding?
Okay, so on the second finding, which this is the greater finding that the county would have, which we haven't had, and this is considered question costs and a qualified opinion versus what you want in an audit, which is an unqualified opinion. That means they did not have to interact in relationship to a federal funding source. So in this situation, this is again related to the ARP funds and a project that was approved and a process that should have been gone through at the time that would have said we were what we call sole sourcing, or using an existing vendor to perform work and then utilizing these ARPA funds. So in November of 2021, the board had approved a contract with Johnson Controls to evaluate the internal energy efficiency of the buildings. At that time, it was determined that the work would be done at a cost of close to $500,000, and that would be part of a savings performance contract, that any costs incurred through the whole projects of replacing lights or whatever would be handled through a reduction in the cost of use of energy. So what then occurred in March was that the Johnson Controls had indicated that the energy efficiency side, and it was agreed to within the federal ARPA funds, that those could be used to offset those costs. So a new plan was put in place that utilized the ARPA funds. At that time, it should have been, and it is a document, it should have been indicated that we were utilizing the same contractor and justified on a form. That was not done. So that's what created this issue. So in terms of this, the revenue is allowable under the fund, the ARPA funds, but it should have been evaluated as a federal contract or a federal grant and a contract to either bid out or use an existing vendor, which we could do. So that step is what created the question costs of 2.2 million, and then the, what's called a qualified opinion again. So, again,
So if we had that one form, if we had signed a form that said, this is the vendor we're using currently, we're going to extend and enhance this contract, and we had a form that we had either signed or that we had seen at this committee, it would have been a no problem.
Well, it was a sign that would have just been, that would have gone through the purchasing process. The resolutions that were used to go through this process was to use Johnson Controls as the vendor. So once the initial resolution and agreement was put in place in 2021, had you utilized a different vendor, then the county would have had to pay back that $500,000. So the initial intent, before the ARP funds came into play, the initial intent was to continue through the process with Johnson Controls. It wasn't until we triggered utilization of the ARPA funds that this was the creation of the weakness.
Blake's still right. If we simply indicated that we were amending the contract with Johnson Controls and had documentation to that effect, I think,
They were all amended. Everything was done correctly at board level. Again, it was a process within purchasing that was not followed. So, yeah,
what you're telling us is there's a document somebody should have filled out,
correct.
and that was the only problem. I mean, we amended the contract with Johnson Controls. We already had a relationship with them and precisely in this area. I mean, it would have been foolish for us to go back out at that point.
You would have had to pay back that $500,000, so.
Okay.
So that's, again, that's the worst finding. But in terms of looking at the whole scope, the process was followed, the revenue was allowable. It was a procedure that was not followed.
And the procedure stemmed from the fact that we used ARPA funds instead of general funds.
Correct, because now you're utilizing federal funds, which puts you in a process of vetting a vendor or indicating you're sole sourcing it, required under federal guidelines. So there's an actual procedure, a policy manual that is for federal funds. There's a page within that. It should have been signed by administration. So,
Commissioner Augustine?
And even though the audit is for last year, this was something that happened actually in the prior year, correct?
2022.
It was 2022. Was it the prior fiscal year? Either way, I guess what
Yes,
I'm
it was
getting
in
at.
21-22 fiscal year.
Right, so 21-22 fiscal year, and the current administration was not in place at that time.
Correct,
It was the prior administration.
correct.
And you guys, as the current administration, acknowledged and understand that there was an issue with, as you said, the procedure within the administration's office.
Correct.
You guys, we fixed that. You've made sure that this won't happen again within your administration, correct?
Correct, but I will note that, again, you're dealing with whether you want to say staffing issues or a change in workflow, or where I would see the weaknesses in purchasing.
Right. Our purchasing policy that we've talked about needing to be
Yes.
updated, but we don't have the staff or the ability to do so. I completely understand that.
Correct. So the hope, the goal would be to amend our purchasing policies to align with the federal guidelines,
Yes.
and then there would be a process and a checklist going through.
Then it wouldn't matter whether it was federal funds. It wouldn't matter which funding source we use. We're following that policy consistently, which makes complete sense. So I appreciate that and look forward to that happening at some point in time when we can either engage somebody or hopefully get additional staff to work on that. So that makes sense to me.
how much of this is because it was ARPA money? This is my recollection that when we had the ARPA money back in 2020, 21, 22, is that was a moving target as to what we could do with it, how we
Correct.
could,
So,
does anybody take that into account? I mean, because
Well, we could take a lot of things into account in terms of ARPA funds, the fact that, there was you want to call it a struggle or a rush in order to utilize funds, the unknown requirements under ARPA that changed, and we still just received guidance just this week that is changing, that will impact entities that have utilized the funds to hire someone to administer the funds. So now they're indicating that that's not an allowable cost. So I was just on a call with our MAC and MACO administrators group, and they're urging us to talk to the federal legislators to tell them you can't make this change. That would not impact us because we did not hire additional staff to administer. So again, yes, we're into 2024, and this is the year to end and obligate your funds that need to be spent by '26, and they're still making changes. But in terms of this finding, again, if you culminate everything together and not having staff that can evaluate from the minute that we receive the 21 million in funds and walk through a step process, right? That resulted in this step being missed. Bottom line.
And speaking from the inside, we, during this process, and we commissioners will all know this, we dozens of times asked staff what was allowable, what were the guidelines, how could we do this process, and it was always in flux. It just was always troublesome. Some of the other groups, the municipalities, they kind of got a pass on it, use it for whatever you want. That didn't work for us. They gave us guidelines, they changed the guidelines, they gave us more guidelines. The whole process was cumbersome and Byzantine. So we did our best, and now we've got a finding, right?
Well, and the other thing, these audits are, they're necessary evils as far as I'm concerned, but, for the last 2 or 3 years, it seems like they come in and they say, well, the Gadsby standards have changed in this area or that area, and all of a sudden they're requiring us to do things that we never had to do before, and, to meet these new standards. And so this is always, seems to me to be something of a moving target. And so, all right, so we didn't fill out a form.
And I will add that, not naming any other smaller counties, they were completely out of the program, and that's why they did try to hire it out, because it was past them. Because, right, ARPA was so confusing at the beginning, and they just didn't have the competency.
Yeah, you dumped $21 million in terms of Eaton County that then had to be evaluated with existing staff. That created a workflow, even more of a workflow problem within Eaton County, because now you have to determine how it's going to be spent. We had people coming to us from outside agencies asking for money. You're trying to utilize the monies that we could for the general fund to balance our budgets for 3 years. So there was a lot going on and moving parts, which are still moving. And it does, staff levels do play a large role in this. But we also do not have a budget to support additional staff in departments. So.
Okay. So these were the findings, this was our brief on them, and auditors will be present with us in our April full board meeting. I don't see a reason for them to come to our Ways and Means meeting in April. I don't know that they're going to give us any more info than we've just got here, unless you want to try to drill them or something.
Well, they can come to this meeting and to the full board,
Okay.
or,
I think they need to come to the Ways.
Okay. That's what we'll ask them to do.
okay.
Commissioner DeRosa?
So I guess the bottom line question for me is, did we incur any financial penalty for this?
No.
So it's just a slap on the wrist and don't do it again.
Well, so related to question costs and a qualified finding. Don't even want to say this, but when discussing this with the auditors yesterday, they don't believe that there would be any issue. So the worst thing that could happen would be that they would indicate that that 2.2 million was not allowable on the project because it was not, we didn't indicate why we were sole sourcing it. They indicated that would be very unlikely, but the fact that he could not say definitively to me that nothing would happen, then I'm not going to consider it to be non-risk. So I would consider it at risk until we hear from the federal government with respect to this program and any other programs. So I would play it safe.
So sometime in the next 20 years, we may be hear back on this then.
It should be before 2026, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that information for both of you, and we will expect to hear from our auditors on our next Ways and Means meeting and at the full board when we actually accept the audit. The audit's presented to the full board.
Yes.
Anything else on this one? We beat it up pretty good. I'm glad we had this opportunity to discuss it at this point and kind of get a briefing, what it is we're talking about. We could kind of all put in our bits and pieces.
It gives you time to think about it in terms of Ways and Means level, to think about any additional questions you would have either for the auditor or for staff next month.
Okay, Mr. Dawson, personnel update.
All right, everybody. So this month, we filled 3 positions. We have 19 positions posted online. 7 of those are ongoing requisitions between the Sheriff's Department and Youth Facility. But we have opened up both the seasonal positions for parks, so operation and programming staff hiring is underway. Considering that springs come early, Parks is looking to get things going earlier as well. So if you know anybody who would be interested in seasonal work with our Parks Department, let them know. There are 7 positions we're recommending due to people resigning or retirements. I'll go through kind of department specifics. So Sheriff Department update, Sheriff's Office update. So jail's fully staffed for correction deputies. We did do a posting online, but that's just to build up a pool of candidates because there may be an opening in the next couple of months. The EMT positions in the jail, we still have 2 vacancies, and it's just not working. We find qualified candidates, and the few that we get that are qualified never make it through the full background check or the hiring process. So those remain unfilled at this time. We're still down 10 deputy vacancies. So part of the reauthorizing, you'll notice there's 3 sheriff road patrol positions, 1 in command and 2 deputies. So one of those are retirement, 2 are going to other communities and have accepted offers. We don't have firm dates on all of those leaving. I believe 1 is departing April 29th. So I'll say a little bit because we did go into early bargaining and this body recommended and the full board had passed wage increases, which all I can say is I think things would be a lot worse off had we not done those processes. And we were really clear when we had our discussions with the unions that this was our first step of us trying to take a stab at the difficulty we've had with staffing for public safety and the loss of third shift. So that continues to be something that we're struggling with, but I still thank you all for the role you played in helping to give more tools.
For clarification, when
Yep.
you say that we have a couple impending or upcoming retirements with the deputies, those positions, they're not posted in here yet, or are they?
The only one is the lieutenant position, which as of the date that I put this, I didn't have the exact date, but I believe will be April 29th for that one.
Okay.
The other 2 have formally accepted job offers, but we just don't know when their last date will be. I believe 1 was to Meridian and then 1 to Northville, so it's.
Hey, Ben, these not the retirement, but the ones that resign, are they the longer-term employees? What's their tenure here?
I don't have that with me, but I can get that and talk to you.
Yeah, just a ballpark. I'm just curious if it's newer people that are leaving or if it's people that have been here for a while. Thank you.
No, it's a good question, good question. So we still have 5 deputies in field training, as we've talked about in the past, so we're 10 positions down, and those 5 have to be on patrol with an officer who's completed field training. So really, from a coverage standpoint, it's like we're 15 spots down because those deputies can't be on the road on their own right now. Future outlook, counting the lieutenant that's going to be going in April, there are 5 other deputies that will qualify for retirement this year. And so at this point, we would expect that employees who are eligible to retire will do so shortly after they meet their eligibility. So as the department's planning staffing, they're keeping in mind that there's probably another one in May and then trickling through September and October, but those are just transitions that we know are coming. As we've stated previously, a number of applicants eligible for hire based on criminal history background and a physical, meeting physical requirements is low. And then once we funnel them into going to get MCOL certified, oh, go ahead, Joe, yeah.
When you say we're essentially 17 deputies down, you're not including the 2 deputy positions you're recommending today? So we're actually,
Correct, yeah, yeah. So we would be 10 and then the 5 that are on field training currently, but
would be,
in April, when these 3 leave, we'll really be at 18. Assuming and we have 5 in the academy right now. Let me see if I have their dates. And I think some of them will come out in May, but still they will be in field training, so it doesn't go to your point of meeting demand to provide better coverage for county residents. Yeah. Good question.
Well, and just the math, we've got, if we had 100 deputies or in corrections, and they work for 25 years, you're gonna always have, even if everyone worked their entire career with us, you're gonna have that base turnover of 4 or 5 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it works, and if they leave early, then you're gonna bump that number up, and the catch-up, you gotta add a lot more than what you might expect.
I will note the question that Commissioner Augustine asked about the term of service. I believe it was you. 9 years for one of them, 3 for the other. And then there is another one I don't believe you put on there because I don't know if the process is full.
Okay, okay.
But we don't have that type of confirmation right now, but that would be 3 years as well. So we will have more than likely another that would be reported for next month.
and the person with the 9 years of service, they went someplace else that has MERS?
I don't know if they went someplace else that has MERS, but they came from a MERS, another entity, so they would qualify for the pension
they're-
benefit.
I was going to say, that's odd that somebody would leave a year early unless they were going to something else that they could take and continue their service. Or if they already qualified because they had prior service someplace else, then that makes more sense.
So these recruiting issues aren't, unique just to Eaton County, but our compensation structure put us at a disadvantage for a while. We took a big step in resolving that through the early bargaining, but we're still going to be continuing to feel the effects, just less people going into law enforcement, less people in general, and just stiff competition from cities. Anybody that has a police or sheriff's department is out there hunting, so.
Could we circle back a second to another group? You said we're hiring our part-time parks people. In the past, we required them to be 18 so that they could work weed whippers and mechanical things. We are gonna make some adjustments to that. Have we done any adjustments? Can a younger person work for the county as a temporary, even if it means just emptying, picking up leaves and sticks?
Correct.
We want to just
They hired
confirm it.
Watson Heiser's daughter to work out there?
Yep, so we rolled that out mid-cycle last year. We were able to implement it pretty quickly. So a couple notes on that, though. We won't roll that program out until school's out because the hour requirements are different when it's summer versus school hours. So I believe Travis's plan is to roll that out as summer actually comes in. And then depending on your age, if I remember correctly, I think there's 2 to 3 tiers. And at each age iteration, you can do, I don't want to say more dangerous, but like the younger people, I know, I mean, younger people can't use any tools. Like there's like very strict regulations.
So
That's,
depending on your age, you're able to do more responsible things.
yeah, I like that. I like that. See what Joe said, but. Yep.
Okay, got it. So you answered my question. We talked about it last year, but this is the year when we're implementing it and creating maybe a better opportunity to hire some younger people that can
Yeah.
that can do work, you know, that doesn't have as many complicated devices as.
Correct, yep.
Other persons.
Yep, so they might be there, but it'll be a staff seasonal that's running the lawnmower or, you know, driving a Kubota or whatever it is that we use in our parks. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Great. I will say also, prosecutor's office is also struggling with recruiting and just attorneys in general.
I did receive an update that they have conducted interviews, so they may have a candidate that just came up last night.
That's
2
wonderful.
months ago, we gave the prosecutor that extra person he needed, and he's been looking for that person ever since. So maybe we've got somebody.
And it'll be an entry-level individual, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Should probably widen his pool for his search. I mean, attorneys are rich Republicans. You might want to throw a couple of Democrats in there.
I'll see if I can implement a strategy around that. We have had 2 public defenders cycle out, so we just hired 2 attorneys, and then we had 2 cycle out, so
They're
it's.
lawyers, they're not attorneys.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just keep in mind, we also, that side of public safety, we have difficulties with recruiting and retaining attorneys as well. And we took a stab at trying to fix compensation by giving flexibility for those offices in concert with the controller's office, but there's still more work to be done, I think, on that front as well.
Yeah, with attorneys and with law enforcement, it's going to be a struggle. I just looked online, not to steal your thunder, Ben, but I looked online, and since settling the contract with respect to that,
None of them MCOL certified, so
Yeah.
we're still
correct.
having to build them out, so, yep.
I'll move the recommended positions.
Or
Moved by Augustine, supported by Brailer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Finance Director, Melissa?
So I have presented the health insurance report. That's the final for 2023 for you.
What's the bottom line?
The bottom line is we squeaked by. Looks like there was a settlement adjustment that I had indicated last month. That one that came through was $168,000, so that kind of helped our fund balance quite a bit. Part of that ended up going to our retirees' health as well, so that helped our retirees' health, because those settlement funds are split between the health insurance and the retirees' health based on the number of contracts. So I did also include an update for the retirees' health information, as well as the number of retirees that are eligible for the retirees' health program. So, and that is broken down by Medicare eligible versus non-Medicare eligible because of the change for the Medicare Advantage, so. Are there any questions on the health insurance report? Okay, I will move on to the child care fund report then. So in December, we reported a projected ending balance of about $1.2 million. As of today, after the audit, we're projecting a $1.4 million in that fund balance. So that was substantial. I would request that we retain these funds still in the childcare fund because we're still dealing with uncertainty with the increased staffing needs and the costs associated with that until the facility is, the expansion is finalized. We can possibly move some money back, but I don't want to recommend that at this time until we know what our staffing costs will be on that.
Commissioner Augustine?
Thank you. And Melissa, I think that's a great idea. I'm supportive of that concept. My question is kind of around the idea of staffing up the youth facility. And at what point do we need to start? I mean, one of the reasons that we left the funds, that we've been leaving the funds in the child care fund is not only for contingency, potential construction contingency, but also to help staff the facility and get it up and running. At what point do we start making that move and start trying to staff? I know we're already understaffed in the youth facility now, so is there a reason why we wouldn't go get additional staff members to help bring that up to the level that we need now that will, I'm asking.
I can address that. So I had a conversation with Director Mulvaney this week, and he sent me a plan moving forward. We will start to implement some of that. Some action will take us modifying some of the way the positions are currently being filled. He has done a great job in bringing on the youth specialists, which are part of a bargaining unit. But again, I think I've mentioned in here in the past, we're looking at a full scope of personnel within the facility because if within that bargaining unit, we increase the wages there, then we have an issue in our other programs. And also with our shift supervisors. So we have to take a very holistic and cautious approach on how we're going to fund and staff the facility. So he is working diligently on putting together a plan and has sent me the first step. But I have not had a chance to go through what that process was, and I have not had a chance to talk to HR Director, Deputy Administrator Ben Dawson.
So as we go through this, I mean, I know we've talked about too, we've got to negotiate with them similar to what we did with the sheriff's department. Is that really the first step to get that settled, then start looking for people to fill the role? Because obviously, we can't fill the role at what we're paying them now, so why try to?
It's a strong step. So the goal obviously is to get people in here and trained. And just like the jail, central dispatch, and the deputies, we have a difficult time going through the training process. When you get through the training process, then they have to be evaluated again to ensure that they meet licensing requirements. So Mr. Mulvaney has, again, started that process and is staffing, but he has to have a phase-in approach because you don't want to bring people on too early, and you also don't want to bring them on too late. So as he's receiving applications, he will go through those, and if he has people that he will be able to hire, then he'll start doing that. So we would not want to do that, probably not until May, potentially June. But again, I want to wait until we have that full proposal that he's put together.
Okay, good. So the wheels are in motion to
Correct.
figure out how to staff that
Correct.
facility.
Yeah, Director Mulvaney is doing a fantastic
Oh, I have no doubt. Jeremy's great. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Prowright?
Okay, so when we bring people in to train them through the sheriff's department, it's a delineated amount of time that they have to be in those training programs. Do we have the same thing for the youth facility? Do we have a delineated, we start training them now, and it's so many weeks, and then they're done? Do they have the same type of regulations for training programs, like EMTs or?
Well, it's going to be different. It's going to be based on the evaluation of the senior staff, the shift supervisors, and the deputy director and director to evaluate the individual. So it's different, but they have to ensure that they can do the job in order to continue to meet licensing. So that includes, just as it would in the jail, medication distribution, which we do not currently have a nurse on staff, which that is part of the plan with the expansion is to either have a nurse or contract. Doing either is close to impossible at this point because trying to contract with nurse for nurse services is very difficult, and trying to hire a nurse is even more difficult. So again, that's something that Mr. Mulvaney is working on and will be discussing further. We also have to continue to look at food services within the facility. It is difficult to contract with someone to do food because the requirements to providing it for youth versus an adult is more difficult. There's greater nutrition requirements. So we just lost a on-call cook that they have, which is difficult, again, to staff, and having your director and your deputy director cooking has been what they've had to do over the last couple of years because we can't hire a cook. Again, all of these things are compounded with respect to staffing and the requirements of the facility. So we've got a lot of difficult challenges ahead. I know we'll get there. Nursing and food services are going to be a challenge that we have to meet. Hiring the youth specialists and the treatment specialists within the other programs, I know we'll be able to get to that point, but we'll be engaging the union shortly.
Okay, so it's kind of, I guess I was looking at from the perspective of if Delta needs a paramedic, they send them over to LCC for a set amount of training, you know what I'm saying? Or the sheriff now sends them to a police academy.
Yeah,
But that's not how we're doing the needs we need over there at the juvenile facility.
correct. They have requirements, educational requirements, and a certain number of semester credit hours that they should have taken within the discipline for taking care of youth. But again, no, there's not like a stringent requirement other than the educational requirements. But it is a very difficult training process because, again, last thing we want is to have someone staffed over there that is not capable of dealing with youth in the appropriate manner.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if there was.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yeah, thank you. And this is just a thought. It may not work, but we talked earlier about the EMT position in the jail and not being able to fill that position. Is there a way that you can kind of work the two together to where maybe it looks like a more attractive position, or we could have more funding to pay for nursing services in the youth facility and EMT services in the jail?
So I know that, again,
And I didn't mean for you to have to answer this here. It's just a thought that I just had that I thought I'd get out in the atmosphere, that maybe that would be a way to help solve that problem.
I'm thinking the same thing. We've got the medical care facility and over here where we have a couple of nurses, and Martha always says she's short, she can't get any nurses, but
we used to have a contract with the medical care facility that ended due to staffing. They don't have the resources. Same would be true with the health department. And there's different situations with the nurse for the jail and primarily the physician that runs the jail because they're an internist, again, internal medicine, so they're not allowed to treat anyone under 17.
Okay.
So there's a lot of difficulties. We're dealing with.
I knew there was
all of
probably a
those-
reason why my idea wouldn't work, but I thought I'd throw it out.
Dealing, but again, it's something that both the jail and sheriff's department and the youth facility have been in contact over the years, and it's just not, that's not a good fit.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you for teaching us all this.
well, and talk to me about just a little bit more about contractual services. We've had some of our partner groups in here dealing with youth that say that they have people that work for them that are in the same tracks. And will that be one of the options that we have to look at, look at some outside groups to try to contract them in to our facility? Is that an option at all? By creating a
Speed up.
basically creating a represented group that makes it more difficult.
Well, the represented group as far as medical would not exist. That would be a
I'm talking
professional
about
position.
I'm talking about youth specialists.
Yeah, you're not going to get, even if we didn't, even if they weren't in a bargaining unit, we're not going to get that availability for contracting with, it would be like having the jail contract with, to get corrections deputies. First, it would be difficult. Second, it would be really the last thing you would want to do. You want those individuals to be committed only to the facility that they're operating.
Okay?
So.
Okay, we've gone back to personnel, but we were actually talking with Melissa. What more do you have? We did the youth facility.
She's
That
good
is
to
all
go
of my
on.
reports.
You're all done?
She'll take that exit.
Good enough. Yeah, we kind of sidetracked on that one. Yeah, it was childcare fund. Okay, Chad, I see you out there. This is time for the, speaking about the youth facility. You probably have some updates.
Yes, good morning, and that's a good segue. So I'll start with our project updates, the youth facility expansions, moving along on schedule. This week, they are constructing the new intake area, which previously housed our generator. We decided to redo that space, move the generator to a different location, and then enclose that space, and it's going to be the new intake area. They were erecting the steel this morning when I was over there. Pouring the concrete floors, and the expansion side is also happening. Everything's moving along pretty good over there. The JCI performance improvement and solar is wrapping up. Contractually for the original scope, I think we're down to just the last 4 EV chargers, which I wanted to wait until we completed our gutter and downspout issue out back. That piece is wrapping up. In regards to the gutters and downspouts, this week they completed the parking areas, the judges' parking areas, all of the electrical heating element that's going to prevent those from freezing is done. The only piece we have is the sheriff's parking area that is in fabrication right now, and that'll be happening in the near future. With some of the rains recently, I've been able to see that that's really working. So it seems to be going to alleviate the problem that we were having. Also this week, Strata, our third-party consultant out at the landfill, is doing PFAS testing, and they're probably concluded by now. I think they had a little bit left to do today. Other than that, we're working on finalizing the capital improvement plan, and then obviously knee-deep in the 24-25 budget requests. Can I talk about the town hall meeting at all, or not? Town hall meetings, just to...
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, it's your report.
This is a little separate from my report, but I was fortunate enough to be on the panel for the employee and staff town hall meetings, and I just wanted to tell this group that it went very well and was received very well from our staff. I've had a lot of good feedback about the openness and transparency that came out through that. So I just wanted to say that.
Good.
That concludes my update.
Any
questions?
questions at all about, are we looking at doing some work on the front sidewalk here?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I have several areas around, just kind of waiting on good weather. We have some, but I do have several areas of sidewalk that needs to be replaced, walkways that is just in disrepair, and, it's time, so.
And I see we've got some, the walkways are progressing. We've got some nice walkways out here that
Yeah.
people are actually using, and nice weather gets employees out and gets our residents out walking, so.
Yeah, I've seen increased use. Obviously, those went in the fall last year, not so much use over the winter, but more and more as the weather turns warmer. We have these warm days. Both staff and community members alike are using them, so.
Are we on schedule for the medical care facility, or are we ahead of schedule because of the pleasant weather that we've had this last month?
Youth facility.
Youth facility.
For youth facility?
Yes, we are on schedule. Everything's progressing on schedule.
We're not ahead at all, we're not picking up a pace.
They pick up where they can, but it's kind of the ebbs and flows of a project of that nature.
We've had a couple of weeks of 50 and 60 degree weather. I would have thought that there were,
Oh, yeah, they're making hay over there when they get it.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yeah, actually, my question was on the youth facility as well, but it was more on the financial side of things. How are we at as far as the budget goes and the pay schedule? Are we on track there?
Everything's on track, and whenever we can.
No big change orders yet or anything?
No.
Okay.
And don't expect any. Getting it out of the ground, that's where.
You just said that. Why'd you say that?
Because when we come out of the ground, there, you can come up with, bad soil.
Right, we're past the point of where the bigger issues would be. Sure, makes
So
sense.
now I'm looking at some of those that we had money allotted for, kind of pulling that back and looking at other ways if, that we don't need the bucket of money for bad soils, so we're past that, hoping that we do, we have leftovers.
Leftovers to make up for any other contingency that may come, okay, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Well, and along that line, or not that line, but I was, the other day, I walked through some of the remodeling going here in this building, and I went over to construction code area, and Brandy gave me a tour, and you know what? That's going to be a very nice working area. Now that the file cabinets and all the clutter's out of there, you really can see how much space we had back in that corner of the complex, that for years, we just assumed, it was filled up with file cabinets and stuff. And boy, that's been cleaned out of there, and there's substantial amounts of room. And I think the Construction Codes Group really has a great work area. To watch them get out of that confined, cramped, where they all sat on top of each other, small space, and into a larger space, everybody seems to be really pleased with this transition. So, and that's, it's on track and reaching completion as far as I can tell.
So we're halfway there. We're done with the equalization side, the old construction codes area, and we're getting ready to ramp up on the construction codes area. There'll be also resource recovery is going to move up there, veteran services, and community development. So there's a few in that back area that you were talking about. It made sense. I mean, as equalization moves to more digital, we didn't need all of the file cabinets and big areas for plan maps and plans. And I continue to look at spaces like that. If we can utilize every square foot that we have. I mean, we have some departments that are bursting at the seams, for example, construction codes, and then another area that was vastly, a lot of space. I thought, why can't we make use of this better? So that's, part of the things I look at constantly, and I have departments asking, what can we do so it's always a challenge, but again, that's part of my job is space management, so.
You've been looking at the animal building over there, and that's really kind of dated. Is that kind of on your radar to do something with that
It is.
particular area?
It's on my capital improvement plan, looking ahead, that we're looking over the course of the next 5 or 6 years. It's on there. There's certain things that we try to just kind of limp along until we can get the funding, right? So, and we look at that all over the place. It's not unique to that building. We have aging infrastructure everywhere, and, but yes, that's on our radar.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
And I'll just add that Chad and I had a conversation regarding a tour through the facility over there. So when it gets to a stage where it's more reasonable, that I think we're going to try to set up a time, like maybe before the board meeting or something, and so that you don't have to make a special trip.
We're gonna have a lot of time this next board meeting. We got the town hall that starts at 5 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to put that on your radar.
But I don't want to walk through the mud.
And that's what I'm kind of waiting for. We get all the floors poured and the exterior walls up, you can really see the shape of the building.
I drove over there last week, and I got out of my car to take a little mini tour, and I got about 4 steps and said, I'm not booted up appropriately.
Yeah, so that's, once we get past that muddy stage, we'll set up a tour.
Okay. Any other questions for Chad? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the claims and purchases. Let me see, where we're at? We're at miscellaneous,
Yeah, there's no miscellaneous.
okay?
Move the bills. Support.
Moved by Braille, supported by Pearlwright. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Budget.
Okay, last up, just to give just an overview of personnel expenditures, which is all we're presenting today because departments are still putting in their budgets. If you look at the left side, you'll see that's the 24-25 estimated personnel costs. You can look at the next columns over, which is the 23-24 budget. And with respect to the general fund, which is what we're most concerned about, we are estimating almost 34 million in personnel expenditures. This includes the bargaining that was done with the two sheriff's department groups. And this does not anticipate any increases for any other employees, which we will add. I wanted to make sure that you saw this without, instead of putting in a 2% increase as we have in the past, since we don't know, number one, what we'll bargain, and also not knowing where we're going with the budget, so this has the base. I will say as administration, I do not recommend that you do not provide a cost of living increase for employees, because we have not kept up with the pace of the cost of living, so. So this is what you're looking at. Commissioner Augustine had a question.
Commissioner Augustine.
Yeah, thank you. Just, and I don't know if this would be Connie or Melissa, or maybe you can't answer this now, but just curious where this sits compared to the discussions that we've had in our financial stability work group and looking at the personnel expenditures as we have done over the last, I don't know, how many years, looked at what that number is going to look like next year. Is this quite a bit higher than that number that we were using to plug in there, or is this in line with that?
This is in line with that.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know if that delta is getting bigger or if it's about the same as what we were looking at.
In this case, it would be the same, but again, this does not include any increases built in for any other than the two units that we bargained.
So at this time, based on this number, it's similar, but if we were to move forward, which we all suspect we would with looking at increases for everybody else, then
May go.
that will make that number higher. I suspected that was going to be the case based on what we were talking about with the sheriff's department, but okay.
Yeah, to the general fund, a 2% increase would be roughly 200,000, Melissa. So then if we were looking at anything more, you can do the math on that.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about a cost of living at 2%, and then you're talking about whatever has been bargained that we would give to the other, certainly the non-represented employees. So you're talking, do we know how much, have we figured out the remaining population, if we gave them raises similar to what we've done with the two bargaining units we've already settled with, what that amount would be?
You're looking at between $500,000 and $600,000
And then
into the general fund. That doesn't include the other funds.
and so and then the 2% cost of living, you said was 200,000, so we're looking at potentially another 700,000 to 800,000 to add to this?
No, I'm saying that right now, if we were to bargain potentially an increase similar to that of what we bargained with the two units, not dealing with the salary structure change as we did, that's what increased this one more. If we were to look at a percent increase, it would be approximately 500,000 to 600,000 additional. So we can show that differently next month. So we can give you estimates of if we increased 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, up to 20%, as Commissioner Brailer would say.
Well, I mean, yeah, I say a lot of things that I don't remember. But realistically, this number should really be probably closer to 34.5 million. Is basically what I'm hearing. Okay.
Okay, and so next month, we will actually start getting a little more into the upcoming budget. and we'll
Yes.
Start talking personnel. When are we gonna, we're gonna make an opportunity for department heads to speak to us and with us? Or is that the plan? What are your thoughts about that?
So generally in June, that's when we do that. During this budget process, I want us to take again, we've had this discussion, a deeper dive into the budget. So next month, you will see what the department requests are.
Okay?
So, and then in May, what you would see would be staff administration recommendations for the budget. So I think in April, I would like to have what their requests are, what I think could be cut. And again, you have to know that departments right now are running on continuation budgets year after year. So any costs that they keep applying are generally costs that they can't prevent. So, from occurring. So, I don't think we're going to, I think what you're going to see this year is the cost of doing business. There's not fat, per se, within the budget that we can cut. So again, you go back to where our difficulties are, and that is revenues being under what our expenses are. I said that last year a couple of times. I'll say it again.
Okay. No, so we're clear on what kind of the process is over the next couple of months as we develop this budget. And in line with Connie's attempt to be more inclusive and make sure everyone is heard, we will be hearing a few things from staff and from department heads. So,
And going to what Mr. Powers said earlier about the town halls.
I wanted to address that next. So
Okay.
budget, it's kind of not, it could have been miscellaneous, but in term, I guess it fits in here too. So that's our plan for budgeting in the next couple of Ways and Means months. And we had recently a town hall meeting. It's our first of several, and this one was with county employees. And if the chairman and Connie could give us a little feedback, maybe Jim, you can start.
So we started about 9 a.m. and finished about 6:30, 6:45 p.m. Yeah. But Connie and I think Claudine brought in some delicious food for lunch, so that was nice. But it went really well. We had a mixture of people that were excited to actually be heard and voice their opinion. Most of it, I think, was positive. You always get some that are very angry and upset about certain things, and mostly the pay. So that's, but we already know that. That's why we're dealing with some of the issues that we are. So they went very well. I got a lot of responses that we've never had this opportunity to be able to tell you, the staff and board, exactly what we're thinking and what we'd like to see different. And we got some good feedback. And even after some of the groups left and departments left, I think Connie and the staff got some emails and thanking them and offering some suggestions as well. But I liked it. I think it's probably something that probably should continue in the future. And I think I guess if there's a silver lining in all this and our budget problems, it's that reaching out to the community. We had the elected officials that were here from the communities. I think that's something that we're going to continue doing, and the same here. This was a very good opportunity for everyone to be involved and feel connected to the county and feel heard. And even though it was a long day, it was good.
Okay.
It was a good meetings, I think. Again, I told all of them, I can take the hits. So say that, tell me the things that are bothering you. If you're not comfortable doing it in the meeting, please send me an email. I did receive some emails. Some were very positive. Some had questions. Nothing that I think is significant in terms of, difficulties other than wages. Wages are by far the biggest challenge for all of our employees. But it was good to actually, number one, be in front and see a group of people who work here and work hard for all of us, and have them see that they have a voice and that they have information provided to them, understand why the board has taken different action in the past, and, the recommendations that staff has for actions to take into the future, and the things that, my office is committed to, that, I'll make recommendations to the board. I cannot, guarantee that the board will follow recommendations related to wages or anything else, but I will make recommendations that I think are best for the county. And I think that gave them a little bit more strength in how they feel as an employee here. So,
We are always the ultimate arbiter in all of these things. We're the ones that are going to determine what's going to happen. Connie can make all the promises she wants, but in the end, we're the ones that make the final decision.
I won't make a promise. I'll make a recommendation.
You know better than that.
I will tell them that I'm committed, to them and to making sure that we can retain and staff, but I can't, tell them that you're going to be able to do that.
And then I just wanted to add too, as we've had the discussion about some of the town halls we've got the two that we've scheduled coming up to invite members of the public to participate in a similar type of a forum. So the first one, like you said earlier, is Wednesday, March 20th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. We have one scheduled in April, but we'll probably bring a resolution next Wednesday to just change the date on that because there's a conflict with that particular date, but we'll still do another town hall that's open to the public as well, so.
Okay. Commissioner Pearlwright?
The one time we were going to change the retiree for the people on Medicare town hall, we had it recorded, and I did go back and watch it. So by chance, was this one recorded for comments from our employees?
No, we did not record the meetings.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
would have had to, essentially with that one, we would have been recording each one of them because they're all different. So we met with different groups.
Oh,
And then, so we had general employees, we had some that were department-specific. Obviously, previously, we had the sheriff's office. The sheriff invited us to attend a mandatory meeting he had called. So we were guests of that meeting, which we appreciated. But again, no, we did not. It wouldn't have been a productive to have all of the.
okay, see, I
yeah.
didn't realize the difference in
Yeah.
structure even, so, okay, that answers that, thank you.
But we did a total of 9 over 3 days, if you count the one with the sheriff's department. So we did 2 on Friday, and then we did 6 on Mondays. So we tried to space it out. And of the, 8 sessions we did, I want to say like 6 of them were for general session. So it was, people had ample opportunities. So hopefully everybody got to find a time that worked for them.
Well, in the past, way back when we had the Great Recession and the crash, I know that Commissioner Brailer was the chair, and we had 2 different sessions, remember, with employees?
Yes.
And so, okay, I just didn't know. Thank you.
Any other questions about the, yes?
Yeah, just real quick about next week's town hall on Wednesday. So first of all, the time of that again?
At 5.
5 PM?
5 p.m. to 6:30.
This is a public service announcement, that's why I'm saying it. It's
Yep,
not,
and
that I have it in my calendar, trust me.
It's in the newsletter. It's also on our social as well. And it was.
And remind me, is that going to be strictly live, or are we going to stream that at all or record that? I can't recall if we
I
discussed.
don't know if we've had that discussion yet.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's live, and if it's going to be live or streamed, we'll need whoever speaks to get up to the mic,
Yeah.
which adds a little bit of complication to it. I mean, that's a good thing, but some people aren't as comfortable getting to the mic and making their comments. Maybe, I just throw this out here for,
I was just curious, I couldn't remember, so I just wanted to make sure we promote it the right way.
yep,
It's a town hall, it's not a meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, just a suggestion on that one, if you thought it was better live so that people could watch it from home. You could also go around and pick up cards, you know what I mean? Pass out index cards like they do at meetings, so people could write something down, and then like Mr. Dawson could go over those comments and things like that if they're not comfortable up there public speaking. Till I got here, it took a while for me to get there. I filled out cards.
I'm assuming you'd like us to attend that, the commissioners to attend that if we can?
I would think it'd be advisable.
Okay, thank you.
What they're going to say, we want to hear what the public says.
Well, will we have a problem if there are 8 commissioners?
That's a fair point.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a town hall, you're allowed to have them. You, obviously, you can't act as a legislative body, and you can't discuss what's held at the town hall outside of a regular meeting. We can get that, advisement from legal counsel to ensure, but it's not like we haven't had a town hall. And it would technically be an open meeting because it's open to the public, so.
I would have assumed we would treat it like limited public comment, where we would listen and not respond. Would that be correct?
Well, the intent of a town hall is, the intent of that is for it to be informal. So when we held them for the local units of government and the employees, we wanted feedback there. We wanted them to have discussion. So in the event that someone here has a question, maybe others in the gallery would have the same question. So we can address that. And it is to engage. What we want is feedback from the residents to let us know what they're, concerned about, what they're not getting. You want feedback so that we can incorporate that into the plan that's going to come from the Financial Stability Work Group. So that's the goal. You really do want a lot of feedback. Again, I'm fine with anger. I think that's productive. When someone comes under limited public comment that's angry, you all sit here and you listen. It's not to engage in this capacity. That's what we want. So, we just want to have good discussion.
Thank you.
At some point, they're going to want to know what we're planning on doing, or at least what our options are. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to give us feedback about anything. So then there's going to have to be at least some general presentation to them I would think, to begin with, just to set the table.
Correct.
Yep, and actually, we have a presentation to go over and different things. So, yep, there will be a portion where staff will lead a presentation, and then we'll have open discussions. So you're right on the money. So Logan's been working really hard at having that material prepped, and for the most of the town halls we've done, we set up tables like here, so everybody's like sitting much, much closer. And if it's a smaller group, I think Logan and I had even talked about, maybe we just set up a round table of chairs, and everybody just sits in a circle and talks. So it will be definitely styled differently than right now, where it's a bigger gap. Yeah, yep.
I'm kind of leaning towards sitting in the audience and not being up here in the big circle. Is that inappropriate?
No, as administrator, what I would recommend is that we do that what you have is the Financial Stability Work Group that is sitting up front because they've been doing the work on this process. They're the ones that you want the public asking or telling them what they want, what their problems are, so that can be incorporated into the plan they're working on. So that was the intent, was to have Financial Stability Work Group lead this session, because it's with the public, it's your constituents, and then for staff to be available to answer questions. We planned on having communications director give a presentation in terms of what we've been working on, just as a communication, and then have the members of the board on Financial Stability Work Group be the ones engaging. So that's the goal.
And then staff taking notes. So like Connie said, we incorporated it into the final
Plan.
and report the Financial Stability Work Group's putting together.
Okay, so I'm not sitting in the chairs.
Right?
No.
You're gonna sit up there maybe in some folding.
Yeah, we were, yeah.
Be in a chair, no.
Okay. Jim, you had something to say?
You guys just did.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? An opportunity for limited public comment. All right, adjourned. We'll see you at 5 o'clock next Wednesday, if not